Hey guys, Zach here with Imaging Spectrum, and today I want to talk about the Epson Edge Print software bundled with the F Series printers. Let's dive in. If it's your first time to install the software, instead of using the CD, go ahead and go to Epson.com and search for the appropriate printer, in our case the F570 here. We're going to go down to where it says Support, click that, and that's going to take us to a new page. Under this page, under the Downloads button, we want to make sure that we have the correct operating system selected. Whether it be Mac or Windows, make sure it's just the correct one. Once that's selected, go into the Drivers tab, and we're going to download a few of these here. The drivers and utilities will download most for you, but I want to make sure we download a few of these extras as well. The Epson Edge Printer installer will be necessary to make sure our printer talks to the software. We're going to, of course, grab the Print Main installer, which is the software itself. Now, if you're curious about these other ones, or if you want to print from a software such as Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator, go ahead and download this printer driver here as well, and that'll allow us to communicate through other software. Once these are finished, if you need to find them, they're generally under the Downloads folder. Now, in order of which to install these, let's start with the main installer, which is the software itself. This, of course, will be the bulk of the system. Down here is the standard driver, and below that is our driver required for the Epson Edge Print software. Once that is complete and you install with your serial number, we will be ready to go. When you first open the program, this is what you'll see. So let's go ahead and start with the basics and add an image. Up at the top left, you can see I can hit the Add button and grab anything I have in my library. This accepts most file types, including PDFs, JPEGs, PNGs, EPS files, AI files, anything you can pretty much need in a workflow. As you can see here, the images themselves come in mirrored already. That's because the program knows we're working with a sublimation printer, which majority of the time, as we know, it does need to be printed mirrored, so that way we can apply it properly. Next, starting from the top, let's go ahead and add another image so I can show you what this nest feature does, which is great for conserving media. As you can see, Epson Edge currently treats this as two separate jobs, which means if I only need one image, we're really losing a lot of that real estate on the media there. So what I'm going to show you is the nest feature. Think of the nest feature as a folder. As you can see now, I can open or close that folder, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the image that is not currently in that folder and drag it right on in there. Hopefully you can see here with the same amount of media that I'll be using, I can save all of that real estate and really optimize this for the best potential. Also, that's kind of cool in this nest feature is I can still treat these as individual jobs, which means I'm not going to affect everything globally, so I can still make some final tweaks there if need be. So if I'm designing a couple things for a mug and maybe a few t-shirts as well, this really helps me conserve and save money. Now, if I need to unnest these jobs, of course, we can go right back up to the top, hit the unnest button, and then treat these as individual jobs again, which may be beneficial for us as well. Of course, the delete features here, I don't think I need to say what that does. In this case, I'm not going to delete the job, but it will just remove it from that queue there. The RIP will actually process the print, but won't print itself. So that way we can have a few that are already pre-ripped, and when the time comes, print them all. As you can see, one says ripped, while this one says idle. Now, if I want to just go ahead and print this job as is, I can hit the print button, which will do both the ripping and printing at the same time for me. If we need to hold a job for later, we can use the hold tab, which is pretty simple. That way I can have one ripped and held, or I can unhold that if the time comes when we're ready to print. Now that we saw what the top tab did, let's go over to the right side and really explore what this software has to offer. Starting with the Job Info tab, we have our quick sets, which we will discuss later, but allow us to have presets ready for any kind of opportunities required. Our general settings show us the file names, the file sizes, dates created, etc. Of course, we can also create these to be tailored to our specific likings as well. Also, a pretty cool print time estimation feature. Under the History tab, we have things such as how many times it's been used or the original date it was used. Over in the Basic Settings tab, we can start with the important settings such as our paper source, which in this case will be a roll paper since we're using the F570 today. We can also set it to auto sheet or a cut sheet if we need to. Under the media size, we have it currently set to 24, which is the roll size in our printer, but as you can see here, if we sync with the printer, it will automatically detect, which is super easy, optimized, ready for anything. In some of Epson's larger format sublimation printers, you can also do the same for media types, such as adhesive or production. Under our media name, we really only have one paper type for this particular printer, but we do have different choices for how it is handled, such as a fabric profile or a rigid material profile. In today's case, we're going to transfer into a t-shirt per se, so we'll set it to a fabric profile. Down here in the passes, I have the amount of ink and essentially the clarity of the image that will be laid down. Honestly, for things such as fabric, a 2 to 7 pass is more than fine. We'll leave it a 7 here today. A 12 pass may be overkill, but if I was doing a rigid good, such as a Chromaluxe panel, I may opt to do something like that for the utmost detail. Under our advanced settings, we have things such as bidirectional printing, or if we uncheck that, we can set it to a unidirection. It will cut the speed in half. However, if you have very fine lines and detail, this may be the option for you. Under the input resolution, for most graphics, we'll be dealing with a 300 by 300 DPI, but again, if you need those fine lines and extreme clarity, a 600 may do the trick as well. We do have before print margins if need be, or if you need a certain dry time so it doesn't come off the machine wet. And we have our auto cut feature, which we can leave off if we need to let it hang, if we need to walk away, or we can have it cut per job as we go down our list. And again, with some of Epson's larger format sublimation options, you may use a take-up rail, which will require you to keep the auto cut set to off. However, if we do leave the auto cut set to cut per job, after each one of these jobs has been completed, it will cut before going on to the next print. Over in the Layout tab, you'll probably see a lot of things you may be familiar with, such as copies, reducing and enlarging, repositioning, rotation, all those good things. As in any good program, you can click and drag around to resize or move, but if you want more accuracy, we can always use the Layout tab to either set our exact width and height, or we can set percentage points to change our image. This way, if I have a high resolution image, I can always scale down to what I need. I don't recommend scaling up if you can avoid it, as you may know this does cause some pixelation, so for highest quality, always try to size down with your image. Same with these aspect ratios. You can see if I turn off the lock, I can change the way it changes the width and height individually, but it also kind of warps the image. So again, I recommend keeping that locked for the most part and only saving that for special occasions. On to rotate and orientation, we have the usual 90 degrees, 180 degrees. It might be easier for me to demonstrate that with this image here, and so you can see how I can actually use this to help conserve space as well on the media again, so I can rotate that 90 degrees and just take up that full space, of course if I need that many copies. As you can expect with the mirror button, we can click this to rotate back to the normal view. For most sublimation applications, this will not be recommended, however there are a few outliers there. But the Epson Edge Print software can also manage things such as their S Series, P Series, and even their new Resin Series printers as well, which allows the software to handle when and when not to mirror the image for most applications. Under our centering options, we have a few things available to us as well. These really handle best when we're nesting. So let me show you that real quick. Let me go ahead and throw a few of these in here. We'll make a couple copies. And then I'll show you what we can do with some of these arrangement options. Make sure when you're working with the arrangement options to click on the nest folder itself and not the individual jobs. Of course, we can center, which will put everything straight down the line. In this application, we do not want to center, but I do want to show you these arrangement options. Starting with standard, you may see we're already in a pretty decent option, so let me go ahead and click this button. Not so great, but if I go to something such as the tight arrangement option, let me show you this. When I go ahead and click this here, it will arrange it for the most optimized position it sees fit, which can be really cool if we have a ton of things in one particular nested job. That way we can just have everything optimized for us, hit the print button, and then be ready when the application time comes. There are a few alignment features on here as well. You may not always need these, but they can do things such as align to center, horizontal or vertical areas as well. Onto the color settings tab. This could be an entire topic on its own, but I'm going to briefly go through a few of the most important things here. One is the give priority to the embedded profile. That's used if someone already has the proper CMYK or RGB profile installed. There's our CMYK profiles, which are a typical 4-color ink process, and there's a lot of the graphics we'll be dealing with in RGB. Now, I'm going to show you really quickly the two probably most important ones to know are the Adobe RGB 1998 and the Epson sRGB. For a lot of graphics that you may get online, Epson sRGB is generally the best option as this is a standard. If you're creating a lot of your own graphic from scratch, especially if you're using the Adobe suite such as Photoshop or Illustrator, Adobe RGB may be a great way to go. And generally through those software packages, you can find out the color space the image was originally in. Down to rendering intent, quickly here I will show you perceptual is a great common option for photographs, kind of keeping things as you see them. Relative colorimetric can be great if trying to hit a very specific color. Some of these other ones, such as saturation, I may not recommend very often, maybe giving you vibrancy but sacrificing accuracy. And absolute colorimetric will change the white point itself, which will not be great for most of our applications here. Black point compensation can be a great feature if you're working with a photograph and maybe want to preserve some of the details in the shadow areas, where pure black will make sure it lays down that pure black ink that Epson has to get you the deepest black you can. Over in the CMYK profile, we have a wide variety to choose from. For most general applications, the Epson wide CMYK format should be fine. If you're working with some companies in specific colors, the swap profile is available here as well. As you can see, a lot of the same features here as well, such as black point compensation, pure black. Now there's preserved black if you want to make sure anything with a slight black in it is solid black, and there's the preserved CMYK primaries as well to make sure you do preserve your cyan, magenta, yellow, and black portions of your image. But just as before, if the image is already prepped ahead of time, we can give it priority to the embedded profile and hope for the best. If you're curious about the output settings, these are where the profiles are, and you can adjust the tone curves. Normally I don't advise this, but tone curves can adjust the individual colors, density, and tone of the output color. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to color, but this can be a great starting point. So now, let's jump over to the color replacement tab. The color replacement tab has a lot of really cool things to offer. First and foremost, if you need to select an individual color and make a few tweaks to it for the final output, this is the place to do it. First, clicking the Edit button, and then selecting the eyedropper tool, I can click on any color in my image. Once it shows up on the input color, I also have the options to change that output color. Here you see it gives me the RGB values as well as the current setting and the change setting. Since no change has been made, we can specify a specific output color using the CMYK values below. Also, if printing from one of Epson's large format machines, such as the F9470H fluorescent unit, this is where you can select your spot colors of fluorescent pink and fluorescent yellow. Back to our original image on the F570 here, you can see how easy it is to change the values by just typing in exactly what's needed. Once that's done, you can generally go back to basic settings and see your final results. Now another cool thing is the color measurement option, which if you have a spectrophotometer tethered to this, you can actually measure that specific value and input that directly into Epson Edge Print. However, if you do not have one of those, a really cool option is the output color adjustment chart. In here, we can use the specified value from earlier, tell it how many patches we need, and tell it how fine of an adjustment we want to make, and tell that to add job. Once the job is added, you can treat it just as a regular image. Once it's finally printed, you can see the actual CMYK values below and then use those exact values to input into the software to know you're going to get the perfect results every time. Moving on from our color settings, let's go ahead and jump into the rest of the tabs here. First is the Marks tab. This gives you options for frame lines, different trim marks, or if you have certain cutting marks that you need to include. Job label can be super useful if you need to manage many jobs. You can add things such as comments, file names, media settings, everything that you might need for your personnel or yourself to handle this later. For now, I'm going to go ahead and set this back to no mark with no job label, and let's go ahead and move on to crop. Nothing too exciting here, but sometimes that can be a very useful feature, especially quickly. We always need to start by enabling the setting. So what we can do is use the traditional drag and drop around, or we can input specific values if we do need to crop this in a more precise manner. So from here, I'm going to disable the setting. And now we're going to move on to two of the settings that I think are really cool that come with Epson Edge Print that can help elevate your product to the next level. Starting with tiling, by enabling the setting, it's very easy for me to specify the number of tiles, horizontal and vertically. And by doing this, I can actually split up larger pieces into smaller segments. A great example is if I have a smaller heat press, but I need to do a larger final output, what I can do is take this certain image and break it up into smaller pieces that I can use on my press. So eventually I can put these all together and create one larger piece that can really wow the customer or bring in more value. You can even consider some abstract designs using aluminum panels from Chromaluxe. So far we've been specifying by the number of tiles, but you could also specify by tile size. I find it easier to work with how many I need and size those as needed for my press. Once you have your tiling complete, you can go back to the basic settings or layout tab and see they have been cut out for us. Now under the layout tab, I can go ahead and select the arrangement options and have those optimized for my print. Now that I'm done with this, let's go ahead and disable this setting, and let's go into another one of the really cool features added with Epson Edge Print, the Step and Repeat option. Under Step and Repeat, I'm going to go ahead and enable the setting here. This is going to allow us to do a couple cool things, but with this one simple image, I can extend it over range as long as I need. With the setting enabled, I'm going to go ahead and tell it the width I'm working with. With the 570, currently I have a 24-inch roll, and in this case, I'll tell it I need a height of 60 inches. As you can see, this quickly makes a pattern across the exact area I need. Another cool thing is to change the layout patterns. Selecting one here, I can specify by different ratios to create more unique patterns, or change it up for even further enhancement. I can even click and drag it around to find the perfect starting point and the exact area that I would like printed. Well guys, I hope this has been helpful so far. I'm going to leave you with one final bonus tip, and that's how to create quick sets and set up a hot folder. I know we talked about quick sets briefly before, but this will show you how to set up a quick set for anything you may need. For today, let's go ahead and set up a quick set for a Chromaluxe aluminum panel. In this case, we're going to go ahead and call it a Rigid Good and name it Chromaluxe. Here under the basic settings, because I generally work with roll paper, we'll leave it there. Most importantly, under media name, we need to make sure we have rigid materials selected. Under our print quality, we can decide if we want to do the 7 or the 12 pass in this case. For most, I'm happy with 7, so I'll leave it there. We have our choices again for bidirectional, and we can always turn our auto cut on or off if needed. Quickly under the layout tab, I'm going to leave all these the same, as I like to make these corrections once my image has entered the software. For the color settings, however, I will go ahead and change my RGB profile to the Epson sRGB. This seems to give me the most accurate results without having to make too many tweaks. And in my case, since I am working with Chromaluxe panels, we'll go ahead and leave this set to perceptual, as we'll generally be using images. Quickly under the color replacement tab, we're going to leave that untouched for now, and just go ahead and run through everything else. Marks I'll leave unchecked, and I'll add those as needed. And under our other settings, we'll go ahead and leave those as is as well. Now one final step here, as you can see we have the blue check on the system quick sets. So once I make that my default setting, now once I close the program and reopen it, I'll be ready for action, and my quick sets will be saved for any time I need them. Once my image is input, if I do need to change that quick set, I can go right to the top right, hit my drop-down menu, and select exactly what I need. Here you can see it changes all the settings to exactly what we had set prior. Of course, another cool way is if I'm importing my graphic for the first time, I can go ahead and check my quick sets down here as well to make sure as soon as it enters the program, it's ready for exactly what I need. Quick sets can save you a considerable amount of time and make that a perfect setup for most goods when needed. Now I want to show you how to create a hot folder. Under the Tool tab, click and go under Preferences. Under your hot folder, we can go ahead and register a new folder to become our hot folder. Go ahead and specify the folder path. Once this has been created, we'll go ahead and move on to step 2. If you have multiple printers connected, specify exactly which printer you want the hot folder to be associated with. On to step 3, if there was a specific quick set you wanted to use, go ahead and select that here. For now, we'll go ahead and select the quick set that we created earlier for the Rigid Chromaluxe goods. Last, go ahead and proceed to step 4 and click Finish when you're done. Now once we drag and drop our file into the hot folder we created, it will import directly into the Epson Edge Print software with the quick set that we created. Super simple, great and productive way to keep a lot of jobs running at all times. Well guys, I really hope this tutorial helped today, and if it did, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. And if there's anything you want to see in the future, don't hesitate to reach out and give us a shout. See you on the next one.